Hi guys, DevilHunterXYZ, and just going back to continue with the trophies that I've had. Yeah, kind of started talking about some of the trophies that I've earned, and kind of my overall experience with them. As I said, platinum 100%. All of these trophies so far. Granted, this is not going to be the end. Of course not. It's going to be a lot more in the future, but continuing from where I left off with Luminous. Luminous is in a way kind of similar to a modern version of Tetris. This is the Electronic Symphony. I think this was like the third game in the series. And anything memorable with this one, I would say, I think the only thing difficult I would probably remember is the black belts unlock Master Zone 5, which it was really difficult. You have to somehow match up the cubes and the sides, but it goes by so quickly, especially on up to level 5. And I remember at one point I had to actually, for some weird reason, they had a patch for this game that, for some reason, after the patch was installed, it was supposed to stabilize things, make it better, but at the same time, it seemed to actually make the Master Zone harder with the patch. So I ended up having to actually uninstall the patch for the game just to even get this trophy. As without the patch, it moves a little bit slower, and I think they also added in some kind of some cubes that help you out. So, chain cubes and the multi-destruction based cubes that help you out. So I'm kind of baffled as to I've never seen a patch for a game making it harder. Yeah, that was kind of strange. Heavy Rain, which pretty classic one right here. The interactive, I guess you can call it the interactive visual novel type game in a way, where you're basically controlling 4 people, kind of investigating a murder mystery that's been going around throughout the city, Philly, and. I don't really think there's anything too memorable at this one. I'd say maybe I'd say the only memorable thing is just trying to get all the endings, which I think there's roughly about 20. Well, they consider each character ending an ending, so there's roughly about 20 endings altogether. So at times you're gonna have to keep repeatedly playing certain sections, backtracking certain sections. I think even at one point you have to essentially, the perfect crime one. Get away scot-free, essentially. Clean man for a shop of evidence, and Laura, Hassan, Kramer die, kill Madison and Jaden, and have the origamers set free. But this one required you to almost essentially play the entire game doing the wrong things, essentially. Right. Superstardust Delta, which this one essentially, it's kind of the, of course, we got another Rocket League update. Yeah, so essentially with Superstardust Delta, it's pretty much like the sequel, the spin-off sequel to the original Superstardust, which everything here pretty much is the same. Nothing really too great. Nothing really too extreme. I'd say maybe just the additional modes that they added, but nothing really out there. Maybe just getting a score multiplier. That's just kind of the more challenging thing. And then have the Starfighter pack, which basically had additional modes added to it, which kind of in a way is similar to the original game. So stuff like having the survival mode, survive for 10 minutes without dying, destroy 5 nukes. Get 15 bombs. Yeah, so got quite a bit of unique things here. PlayStation Home. Yes, I remember this one. For PlayStation Home, it was essentially an interactive space, mostly for the PS3, but it was like an interactive space, kind of hanging out with the community, playing games, doing some types of activities with your special own created avatars. It was something that just unfortunately never caught on, and officially it never even had a release. It was always stuck in beta. But remember the last year it was out, they decided to add trophies for it, which Surprisingly, I managed to get most of these trophies immediately since it was all saved online onto the cloud storage or on their servers. Yeah, but it had some unique stuff like visit your studio apartment, visit your friend's studio apartment, have a certain number of items obtained. Whether you could technically purchase them or get them rewarded. I never actually spent a single dime in the game, so visit 20 spaces. I think the only ones probably a documentary, take a photo for 10 days, and then visit home for 50 different days. Luckily, it didn't have to be 50 consecutive days, so you could have done this any time. Knack, action adventure game, one of the starters for the PS4, and I mean it's a pretty basic beat 'em up type game, beat 'em up action-esque type game, and again, it's not bad for a starter game for the PS4. It wasn't that bad, and also it had the added alongside with the Knack's Quest, which essentially is almost like a Candy Crush clone, but things that you unlock in that mobile game actually would unlock in the main game itself. And of course, it did help out when it came to finding crystals, relics, other objects to help you build stuff. But I think really the only thing here was just maybe collecting all the different Knack types. And then it had some kind of stipulation with the Knack types that you had to complete. But yeah, it was a standard game. Spy Hunter. The Spy Hunter was like a racing. It was, I wouldn't say quite a racing game, but it's kind of more of a mission-based car driving game. You know, you're playing as a secret agent, trying to avoid enemies, but also completing objectives at the same time. Yes, so it's really out of all this, I think really just getting pro status on every mission was the more challenging one. It took a while. Which it had like a lot of stipulations, like the defeating enemies, completing at a fast time, getting the black cube box thing, whatever it was, and not taking any damage, or only taking slight damage. But other than that, I think that was really the only memorable thing I can think of here. The playroom. Technically, the playroom is more just a. It's not really much of a game. It's just kind of a series of multi-games. Just kind of. It's kind of more just an interactive experience type thing where it just kind of getting you introduced into using the camera. Kind of like the same thing with the Welcome Park, trying to get you used to using the Vita itself. This is kind of more like a tutorial-based thing. But it did kind of give you a bunch of small mini-games. Granted, it would eventually transform into other games down the line, down the road for future. Go to home, find all the playroom trophies. Okay, splash the screen. Nothing really too great. Got the Toy Maker DLC, which just allowed you to create toys. Well, granted, you can't actually. It was like an app. Well, if you have the PlayStation app, you can have it as like a second screen feature that allowed you to do stuff for the game itself. My Alien Buddy. Here, Ninja Bots was actually kind of my favorite one, but probably just completing it without getting hit. That was kind of a more memorable one. I mean, you had to pretty much almost memorize the entire track. That probably sure can master as well, trying to defeat every enemy. Then you have the AR Studio, and well, having everything here, give yourself and 3 other people masks to wear. Granted, at the time, I didn't have 3 people with me, so I did the most logical thing, which was I printed out 3 faces from the internet. Surprisingly, the camera was still able to recognize that as actual faces, and still gave me the trophy for that one. Call of Duty Ghosts, which it had potential. I mean, I kind of liked it. I just kind of wish it didn't end in cliffhanger. I mean, I'm still kind of hoping out there they will continue the series. I'm hoping, but it's looking less and less like an opportunity for that to ever happen. Well, I remember for one thing, spatial awareness. Kill your first enemy in the campaign. I say what's interesting is seeing how it's only 54.8%. Kind of goes to show you barely half of the people have even played the campaign. Half the players on PlayStation anyway have played the campaign, because the first enemy you kill it's like in the first like 5 minutes of the game. So it's just mind-boggling to see only 54% even manage to only get this. I mean, you kind of think maybe it would be closer to about 80 or something like that. I mean, granted, a lot of people don't really bother with campaign when it comes to Call of Duty. They just jump straight into multiplayer or whatever. Which, I mean, that's them. That's their liking. I guess I would explain why Black Ops 4 didn't have a campaign to begin with. Let's see. I know I had to beat the game on the hardest difficulty. Okay. Rose or ties. Ghost Killer. Collect all the Rourke files. Yeah, that was something. Cabin Fever. Yeah, then they had the whole extinction mode, which required you to do relic and stuff like that. Safeguard, which is survival. Yeah, so they had some interesting things here. Then you have the Onslaught, which a lot is kind of focused on the extinction mode itself. And of course, you kind of have to beat it on doing certain stipulations for each of the things, like beat the breeder in 5 minutes, which might seem challenging, but if you know what you're doing, you can get it done pretty quickly. Especially if you have the right loadout. Like all the challenges. Alright. Devastation. Kind of the same thing, you're on the ship. And to fight the Kraken. Kill the Kraken with a relic. Complete all the challenges. Kill 15 cedars. Use a hypno trap on a rhino. Successfully build all the schematics in a single playthrough, probably. I think it was a single playthrough, or maybe it was just multiple playthroughs. So I don't quite remember that one. Invasion, which this one you're kind of in the lair itself of the cryptids. You're just in the lair having to decipher hieroglyphics, I guess. But anything here, I would probably say kill a gargoyle with the Vanguard. That one was kind of an odd one, really. You had to use the Vanguard, which is kind of a remote control drone. And then there was this one, escape with each of the 4 classes, which required you to pretty much play this one 4 times and beaten it, and 4 different classes. So, kind of took a little bit of time for that one. Nemesis. Okay, complete Nemesis with at least 1 relic. Go to challenges, find all 7 restore related tells. Okay. Complete any outpost by activating all the generators. I think I know the hardest thing here was probably kill the final 3 ancestors within 10 seconds of killing the first ancestor. So you had to somehow kill, near the end of that mission, there were 3 ancestors, like ancient type aliens, and you had to kill all 3 of them within 10 seconds of pretty much within 10 seconds of each other, which kind of required you to manage out, do a heavy amount of damage in each one of them, and then somehow get them all roughly close together, and then kill them off. At the same time, having to dodge the regular cryptids as well. So that was a pain. And then there was also I think also there had been the other one, which I remember there was another one which required you to I'm pretty sure there was like another one that required you to kill 3 aliens with a single shot from the disruptor. Yeah. Alright, that was kind of a challenging one too, unfortunately. Having to get them all in a single blast. Yeah, but I mean, that was kind of a bit of... Really, the last one was the most challenging set of trophies, in my opinion. Sports Champions 2. Sequel to the original Sports Champions. Different sports for the most part. Granted, they did brought back archery. But I think the only changes really, besides doing specific challenges for each sport, I know they actually required you to actually go through the Champions Cup for these trophies. Granted, it did also allow you to customize your own champion as well, which I did like that. Let's see. The points. Golf at each location free play. Doing a lot of stuff in free play. Big gold. I guess really it's just gold. Okay, I think maybe the Champions Cup was required in the last game, but here I think you only needed to do gold. Maybe that was the thing. Or 250 stars in cup play. But I think really getting all the stars kind of almost required you to really complete all the modes anyway. Alright, Duke Nukem 3D, the Megaton Edition, which I say this honestly is probably the best version of Duke Nukem. It's just sad to say that this version is not even available anymore. They replaced it with the 20th Anniversary Edition, which I've tried that one, and mostly just for the additional episode that they added, and that new episode though was insane considering there's so many boss enemies, and it's almost like someone just decided to throw everything including the kitchen sink in that final episode, that extra episode, just to make it the most challenging episode ever. But I mean, for the most part, it was challenging, except weirdly the final boss when you had to defeat the alien in that one, the flamethrower though, that was surprisingly easy. But anyway, the Megaton Edition though focused. It was the same as the Atomic Edition, so it was the 3 original episodes plus the 4th added episode, The Birth, and then they included the 3 official expansions for Duke Nukem 3D. So it was actually the first time ever playing those expansions, which it was not too bad for a good price of like I think it was like a good price of about $15 or $20, something like that. In my case, I got this one for free since I was a PlayStation Plus member at the time. So I still think this was the best version. It's just, it sucks that there's no official way of really getting this. Maybe if you hack, unless they somehow allow you to hack the files, if someone actually has it, maybe just transfer to another console or whatever. I don't know if there's any other way to get the Megaton Edition. But a lot of stuff just required you to beat the episodes, and really on any difficulty, so you don't even have to beat on the hardest one. Yeah, then of course you had to beat the expansion levels. Okay, I remember for this one, the multiplayer, it had a few multiplayer trophies, which on paper it sounds easy enough. Just kill a certain number of enemies in Duke Match, Team Duke. It was mostly Duke Match, and I think it's Team Duke Match what it was. So it's like a free-for-all type of style game. And well, for one thing, online multiplayer in this game was very sluggish, a lot of lag, and unfortunately it was also buggy, as the stats, the leaderboards didn't seem to keep track of your kills, and at worst times it could actually reset your kill count. So it was very tough getting these. I ended up, to be honest, getting these by accident, and how that happened was, at the time there was like it was like some kind of weird glitch, I guess, where if you if you have both the PS3 and the Vita version, and you try, I think at one point I was playing on the PS3 version. I uploaded the save data into the cloud because I wanted to play it later on the Vita version. I came back to it on the Vita version. I went into multiplayer. I was just trying to see to get some kills and whatever. And then the first kill I got, I somehow got all 3 multiplayer trophies at the same time, which doesn't quite make any sense. I don't know if it was like a weird bug or anything. I think they actually did patch that out eventually, but I mean that was weirdly the quickest way of getting those trophies. I mean, granted, the game itself was already buggy to begin with, so it was tough. I guess the only other way I've heard people doing this is they had another player with them, and then they somehow try to find each other in the same game, and then they just kept having one person kill off of each other, kind of somewhat boost off of each other like that. But you had to do it all in one sitting, because if you turn off the console, then it might end up resetting your stats or have less kills than what is registered. It was an odd thing. I mean, I wouldn't really play Duke Nukem for the multiplayer anyway. Besides, I don't really think anyone's even playing it. Demon Gaze. Standard dungeon crawling RPG. And one I actually pretty liked. Even though I spent a good amount of time on this one. I think I spent like 100 hours. I spent a good 100 hours the first time playing this, just getting everything at once. I think for the most part, probably for the most part, the only thing memorable is defeating Quasar, which the game technically ends after you defeat Archangel of Darkness Soul, but there's actually post-game content which kind of continues the story in some aspect, which it took some time, let's just say, especially near the end, the true ending where you had to defeat Quasar. You had to go through like a whole boss gauntlet, fighting off every boss you can, and unfortunately you kind of had to do it all in, not really in sitting, but you're not allowed to like leave the area, go back to your home base to restock on supplies, so you have to get prepared ahead of time, because if you do go back to the base, you gotta redo the entire boss rush all over again. So it was challenging. I mean, it was fun, but it was challenging. So I would say for those who never played Demon Gaze, maybe give it a shot on maybe an easier difficulty. But I guess to be honest, I really wouldn't say this is not a good. It's not a good starting RPG for most players, unless you're really familiar with RPGs to begin with. Then you have Evil Within, which is more or less the spiritual successor to Resident Evil. And especially like Resident Evil 4, it kind of builds off of that. I know... Let's see. Unlocking all the lockers, that's one thing. Upgrade one weapon. Of course, I did have the... I did pre-order the game, so it did give me the... I can't remember what it was called. The Last Survivor or something pack. Which basically gave you another shotgun. It gave you another shotgun, it gave you some green gel, and then it gave you additional bolts for your crossbow. And really to this day, they still have not released that pack like normally. Like the only way you could have gotten it is through pre-orders. Which I kind of hated that, because they actually had some decent stuff there. Still 400 enemies. Still 25 enemies with melee attacks. Drop it like it's hot. Go through enemies with one drop of a match. Took a little bit of time for that one. Finish the game in under 5 hours. Finish the game without upgrading skills. I think I had to combine a few playthroughs for that one. Of course, the biggest one, you asked for it. Finish the game on Akumu difficulty, which essentially one-hit kills. One-hit kills, and also the fact that you are even more limited on ammo and supplies. So you're going to have to spend a lot of time stealthing your way through it. Because also the enemies had a buff on that too, because the enemies were more aware. They had better, they can hear better, they have better awareness, not much knockback, so they get up pretty quickly. So yeah, you're gonna be stealthing your way through most of this stuff on a Kumu difficulty. That was a huge challenge. Not many people even completed it. Let's see. Then they added some additional DLC. Got the assignments. This one we were playing as Kidman. And again, I guess the only unique one here was play on Kuriyami mode, which that mode, everything is in complete darkness. You literally can't see anything. I mean, you only see the character, you're just in a completely black void, and the only way to see is by the use of your flashlights. So you had to really make use of the flashlight just to really see where you're going. And actually, it kind of gets worse at times because you do lose the flashlight, and you had to rely on nothing but these I don't know, these kind of these little glow stick lights that you have to throw around. The consequence, kind of the continuation of Kidman's story, and I get to the hotel by being spotted. That was kind of an interesting there. The files, complete the hidden letter and the consequence. Okay, kind of the same thing, completed in Kuriyami mode. Then you have the Executioner, which this one here, it was a weird one because you were playing as the Executioner, I guess, kind of understanding who he is and who he was. I think really here is probably, I think at one point you did have to use execution on 20 basic haunted. Clear the first and second floors of the manor, clear the basement. You had this come in, get payback on the cop who done your predecessor. Yeah, so I think after you beat the game, you get these special portals that kind of go into a survival base mode in that one. And once you complete all of them, then you get like a special boss fight against. You get like a special boss fight against Sebastian, which, well, no, actually, I think there was like a separate thing that it happens after you beat the game. You get to fight Sebastian, but I remember there had these portals that had the survival base mode, and at the end of it all, eventually you can have like a co-op fight against Sebastian and Joseph. So yeah, that was kind of a challenging one. Monopoly Plus, for those who actually like Monopoly, which I kind of like this one. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't anything too memorable, to be honest. Maybe just well, I mean, Champion won a 6-player game, which well, of course we didn't really have a 6 players all together, so obviously the best way is just having one person set up for like 6 players. But I mean, that's not really anything too outstanding in that one. But I mean, it's standard Monopoly. If those who've never played it, pretty classic game. DMC Definitive. So the Definitive Edition essentially makes quite a bit of changes to the original DMC Devil May Cry, where it now runs at 60 FPS, 1080p. It does include the Virgil's Downfall DLC immediately. They did change up one or two cutscenes out of the game itself, and then of course they changed up the controls by actually having a lock-on mode available. But for the most part, I honestly think the definitive trophies were a little bit easier than the original. Because I think one case you just had to get like a triple S ranking on I guess this one here, just get a triple S ranking on 10 different missions. So you didn't have to do a complete whole playthrough with it. And nothing really too special here. Well, I guess they did eventually add it in some Bloody Palace trophies. Remember that because they added Bloody Palace after the original. In the original release, they added it like a month after the game came out. Reach wave 50 on Bloody Palace with Dante. Reach wave 30 in Bloody Palace with Virgil. Yeah, so both characters had their separate Bloody Palace modes, so they weren't quite the same. Which kind of a downside because I would like to see how a Virgil on Virgil fight would have looked, or maybe a Virgil against Mundus or Undus in this case would have turned out. Okay. Of course, also along the same time, we also got Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition, which, I mean, considering the Special Edition came out in 2015, 8 years after the original release, I say it wasn't too bad considering they added in. They basically, the big thing is they just added in 3 new characters. You had the standard Nero Dante game. Then you can actually have the Lady Trish game, and then you have the Virgil game, like the target with Virgil. A lot of people have been waiting for that one. And I think the only thing here, never say die, clear all missions, and Dante must die with an S ranking, which really combined that in general. You had to essentially S rank all the missions, and it gets mind-numbingly insane. And actually, along with that, you had to also S rank. You had to also S rank in the new mode that they added, which was the Legendary Dark Knight, which it was a PC exclusive mode at the time, but it essentially multiplied the amount of enemies on the screen. So I guess like fighting standard 3 enemies in a single screen type scenario kind of transformed to like fighting 15 same screen. So it was fun though, that Legendary Dark Knight mode. Clear Bloody Palace with an S rank, which is not really as difficult. I mean, if you can beat Bloody Palace without the use of super characters, you pretty much essentially already have an S rank. But I guess also along with those lines, though. Also along with those lines, remember the fact that you had to complete Bloody Palace with each of the characters. So that means I had to go do Bloody Palace 5 times, very least. Clear Bloody Palace within 2 hours, which seems impossible, but again, in that case you can use a super character, and you keep spamming. Well, I mean, there's a couple ways to do it. So you could technically spam the Pandora with Dante, or you can use the Judgment End attack with Virgil. Keep repeatedly doing that to do massive damage. I remember this one though. Untouchable. Defeat Dante at the end of Bloody Palace without taking damage. Which, I mean, I don't know about some people. I managed to cheap out and use the Dante strategy, which have Dante using the Pandora technique. I can't remember what it was called. It was the one that produces the giant blades that spin around, kind of targeting the enemy. So it surprised me, if you use that technique, the enemy Dante doesn't seem to respond, or he gets caught in like a damage loop, and you just keep doing that over and over. But I mean, it's just the fact that you had to defeat him without taking damage. I think that's the most insane thing, considering it would take you at least 2 to 3 hours, somewhere between 2 to 3 hours, just to even get to the final fight. So if you mess up, you got to redo all of that. Yeah, I think that's really it. Defeat 10 enemies within 1 second. I think for that one, I think I might have just used the holy water. And then of course in general, you have to win each boss fight on a triple S ranking, which is insane, especially down a notch. Yeah, and it had to be on Son of Sparta difficulty at least. Especially going against Dante and trying to S rank was almost damn near impossible. I mean, you had to be pretty good at dodging attacks, but also good at counter-attacking it in the right moment. Alright, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. I mean, it was supposed to be the revival of the the Pro Skater franchise, Pro Skater series, and well, I mean, it's out, but not really what a lot of people were expecting. It was obviously just a huge cash grab by Activision right before, because they were about to lose the license to the Tony Hawk games, so they decided to take advantage on it by shelling out one last game, even though it turned out to be a total flop, unfortunately. I mean, I guess they were trying to put more emphasis on multiplayer aspects to the game, but it didn't really seem to matter too much. I mean, they just had a bunch of objectives for you to complete, kind of similar to the original games where you had to have a set of goals to complete, but they weren't necessarily on a time limit. But then the areas themselves weren't even that massive to begin with, and don't connect. It was kind of a downside to it. All pro missions in any level. Yeah, you had standard missions, and then you had pro missions, which required you to do really insane things. I never done the pro missions on most of them. I mean, because some of them just requires insane things. And considering the game itself was unfortunately a little bit of a buggy mess as well, especially when it came to like grinding. Which it was just something you kind of had to work around, unfortunately. WWE 2K16, which so far was the last WWE game I ever got, unfortunately, because I think at that point I realized it was the first 2K version of WWE I got, and honestly, I kind of realized to the point that most of the 2K games just repeat off of each other, not much any difference. But then also, it seemed like every year it gets worse and worse in terms of bugs and glitches. Anything here? I know, for instance, the giant spear, execute a Big E spear. That one was glitched for a while. Win 20 match variations. Complete a match with 50 superstars. That took some time. Win 10 matches using custom character. Let's see. Of course, getting a superstar rank, which, I mean, the superstar rank wasn't the highest rank. It was like kind of in the middle of the road, so it wasn't that difficult. And really, you get points even just for competing in the game itself. So as long as you really just compete, you get some points. I mean, obviously you get more for actually winning. Teamwork is fun, and win a team-up match. You had to do it was like a 2v2 game. I think it was a 2v2, or maybe it was a 3v3 game where you had to have other players join you on a certain team to win against other players. I think that was kind of the thing. Then you had the 2K Showcase, and for this one it was Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I remember Stone Cold Said So was glitched up for me for a while too. Unlock and view all video replays and images, which the problem was I also had the I think at the time, along with the pre-order bonus, it came with I think it was called the Accelerator, which allowed you to basically unlock everything from the start, so you didn't have to technically play anything. But unfortunately, that seemed to actually glitch up the Stone Cold Said So trophy, so I had to actually reinstall the game without the DLC, without the Accelerator, and then I had to go through the entire showcase once again just to... I had to go through the showcase once again the entire time just to get that stupid trophy. My career mode, which is the closest thing to a season mode. And I remember my career mode had an overall rating of 95 for your character stats. But it required you to have certain points that you get through stars, the superstar points, whatever it was. But overall, though, that one took so much time just to get. Again, I guess you could technically cheap out and buy. They had like a rating type DLC that you could buy for like $15 that boosts your rates up to like 90 points. So you only had to work for 5. Otherwise, you start at 65 and you had to work your way all the way up. But I think that was pretty much it. Purchase all the abilities, purchase all the skills, purchase all managers. Okay. Alright, Child of Light. Which, it was more or less a somewhat of a platforming time-based RPG. And I mean it's a pretty simple one and actually a pretty quick one too. So I would recommend this one for like a starter for any RPG lovers out there. Guess really the only thing. Confessions, defeat foes, interrupt 3 foes at the same time. A little bit of skill. I think really it's just completing all the skills for each of the characters. I think that was a requirement. Upgrade a skill to this highest level for just one person. But other than that, nothing really too memorable, to be honest. Gravity Rush kind of goes into a action adventure type game. I guess kind of think of it like one of those Spider-Man games in a way, where you kind of get to explore the world. But I mean, it's kind of like an open world-esque action adventure game. Which I mean, I do recommend for those who still haven't played it yet. Of course, most likely you'd probably be going with the digital version. I got lucky and got my hands on the actual physical version that was only available on Amazon. But complete episode 21. Yeah, but I mean, finding those kind of copies though right now is a little bit on the scarce side, because I think those are kind of running up for about maybe $60 to $70. Considering I think they were only $40 originally when they came out. But I guess Amazon was limited on supply during the time. Land 10 gravity kicks, but land and they were taking damage. Guess maybe clear every challenge, but gold medal will challenge all that glitters. Gold medal every challenge, which yeah, they had to set. I had a bunch of challenges to go through, whether it being like time-based challenges, kind of enemy type challenges. We had to defeat a certain number of enemies at a time limit. I mean, it kind of ranges. It kind of ranges a little bit from different types of challenges that you complete, and really just trying to complete the game. That was really it. It's nothing too good about that. But then you had 3 separate DLCs, which I mean, since this was the remastered version, it came the DLC packs came with it. So okay, complete Diary Maid, completing. Well, each of the packs had 2 individual missions. Then of course you had the Rift Plane time attack, which you had to complete as well. Yeah, but so along with each of these packs, it also unlocks additional challenges. At the Spy Pack, kind of same thing. Completing the 2 individual challenges, and then completing the 2 missions. Special Forces. So yeah, it was not too bad, considering what you got. Aegis of Earth, Proto-Novus Assault. I only have the Vita version, but apparently this was also a PS3 and PS4. But I guess it all combined into. I guess it all combined into one thing, which at least they had a good amount of cross trophies. What Aegis of Earth is kind of like a tower defense game where you have your own city, and then you're kind of having to. You have your own city, and then you're kind of having to upgrade your city and also kind of build weapon supports to kind of defend yourself against oncoming enemies. And I mean, for the most part, the story-wise, it was okay. Gameplay, it was. I mean, it's a tower defense game, so I wasn't expecting too much out of it. But I think really in general, though, it's just trying to raise all city levels to 20. That took quite a bit of time, unfortunately. Defeat 20 bosses, develop all quarantine land. Destroy one rare enemy type. Let's see. I think really just in general, put the game to the end. Yeah. Complete 100 strike missions. That took some time. Yeah. I mean, for the most part, the missions themselves were not really hard. It's just they were time consuming, and unfortunately, it just keeps repeating. It kind of gets really repetitive after a certain time. But maybe it's not really. I guess really this is not one of those games I would recommend sitting down and grinding your way through it. I would just say take breaks every once in a while from this game because it makes you go insane. Especially just trying to level up your level up each city. That took quite a bit of time with that one. Cube Director's Cut. Really, I have both the PS3 and PS4 version, and unfortunately there was no cross trophy for that one. But Cube was like it was kind of more of a indie type game because I think it was just made by a few students, and you know, essentially it's a physics-based game where you had to use cubes to solve different puzzles, and you had like different types of cubes in general that all did different things depending on their color, but it was kind of more on the unique side, I say that. But I think the only memorable thing would probably be completing the hidden. There were some hidden puzzles that you had to go through, which you had to find in certain spots. But there was also find the developers, find a picture of the developers. But I think there was like one portion in the game near the end where you had to use like a catapult type thing to bounce off to the other side of an area. But if you can manage to get yourself on the other side of the area without the use of the catapult system, then you were able to stop halfway between the areas, and then there was like a hidden passageway that allowed you to find a picture of the developers. So I do like the fact that it had some alternate ways to progress through the areas themselves. Unmechanical, which it was another, I would say, kind of more of another puzzle-based game in itself. Well, actually, I guess I kind of had it was like a bundle. Right? I got Cube and Unmechanical, both for $10 altogether. So, but I mean, it was another short game that to complete. But again, you're kind of using your tractor beams. You're kind of messing with the environment as a kind of somewhat of another physics-based thing. And for the most part, I don't really think there's anything too memorable. Maybe, well, I remember Lupus make 4 loops with the helicopter, and which, yeah, well, this one required you to actually have a support beam in order to get the right momentum, and just had to keep swinging around to get the 4 loops. Which, yeah, that one was kind of a pain because you also had to find a good amount of space to even do that as well. Because you hit a wall or something, or some kind of obstacle, it breaks the flow of your momentum. I think that was really it. Finish the game by escaping, become the new janitor. Yeah, the game actually had a couple of endings, but actually also with that they even had some. They even had the extended version also had like an extra side story. But it was something. And of course, above average intelligence, finished the game with that use of hints. Throw a piece of coal into the oven without touching or anything. Flying for 3 seconds. Okay. I mean, for the most part, it wasn't that bad. Okay. Skipping over to the Order 1886. Okay, so Order 1886 was... I would say it was trying to be a little bit like Gears of War in the old times. I mean, I kind of question why I even bothered getting this game. Maybe because I was tricked, kind of like a lot of people thinking that this game was going to be focusing on fighting werewolves and stuff like that. Because that's what they showed in the trailer anyway. They shows a bunch of holy knights fighting off against werewolves in the streets of London. But this game hardly has anything to do with werewolves. We're mostly just fighting humans, and it's like a really cheap. A really generic version of Gears of War, like a generic third-person shooter that's trying to be Gears of War, and it's nowhere near that. I mean, I kind of question why I even bothered, but anything unique here, I would say find all inspect items, getting all the intel. Probably that was one thing, and that's. An airborne grenade during black site. Yeah, I guess that one took some time to get that one, but honestly, there really wasn't anything too memorable, to be honest. But I guess it kind of goes to show you. I mean, the only thing Order 1886 was good for was probably the visual presentation. I mean, it had pretty impressive graphics, but that's all it really had. Alright, then you have Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered, which a lot of people were waiting for this game. It was just unfortunate at the time. The only way to get this game was get the remastered was you had to purchase the you kind of have to purchase Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, and you had to get the you had to kind of get that Legacy Edition that had the copy of the game in it, but that was like $80 though, so it was kind of really over the top for spending $80 just to get this game. They eventually did make this game a standalone release, but that wasn't until like almost half a year later though, like in June, and at that point most people kind of were not even playing this game. But I mean, it was kind of good, and considering I've never had any trophies for the original COD 4, you know, so I think for the most part, compared to COD 4, I think the trophies were pretty much the same, or pretty much the same as the achievements in the 360 version. And of course, I beaten the game of Veteran. That was some challenge right there. Oh yeah, I remember this one, Time Paradox. As a kind of a funny thing, they actually added Makarov into the game, which, I mean, for those who know Makarov, who are familiar with the trilogy, the Modern Warfare trilogy, I really found that was a unique thing to include Makarov in that flashback mission, and if you can actually kill him, you kind of create a time paradox, kind of preventing the events of Modern Warfare 2 and 3 from ever happening. I mean, it was kind of a fun thing that they included that. I think best of the best. Beat the cargo training mission, Infinity Ward's best time, 15.1, which I think I just barely did it with 14.8, which you have to be pretty quick. You have to be pretty quick, and you gotta be pretty quick, and you had to kind of like preload the grenades throws ahead of time. Like don't wait until you reach the area. Just like, you know, have the grenade cooked right before you hit the area, and as soon as you go through the area, you launch it, and that would save you some time. I don't even know what the world record with that one is, to be honest. I haven't seen that one in a while. But yeah, that was nothing for multiplayer, thank God, but I wouldn't expect anything less. Alright, then you have Job Simulator, which Job Simulator was kind of one of the first VR games that I got, and I mean, the whole premise is you're basically taking on jobs, different types of jobs, you know, kind of doing certain tasks, and for the most part, I mean, you're just basically completing each of the job objectives, and of course, maybe just trying to get your hands on the Job Genie cartridge, like the Game Genie. You activate cheats for it. I mean, I don't really think there was anything too memorable, to be honest. I mean, it was a pretty small game. I mean, you could beat it in like probably 2 hours, honestly. Although they did eventually add in the infinite overtime DLC, the pack, whatever, that basically allowed you to continuously play the game without having to actually go through the story related stuff. You can technically just go through each of the jobs and do whatever random job that you had at the time. So yeah, so it wasn't that bad. Then you have the Playroom VR, which kind of similar to the original Playroom. It's like another multi-series of games that kind of get you introduced into VR itself. I'd say the problem with this was a lot of the trophies required you to have friends, multiplayer type of things. You know, you have actual other players to help you out on this. Of course, I didn't really have anyone to help me at the time, so I ended up having to do this one on my own with another controller, which was a pain, I'm not gonna lie, but it was doable. Like, for instance, defeat the monster and save the city, playing as the TV player. Of course, you had to save all the bots, I think, too. Win the final battle. Let's see. Peek sideways to look at the VR heroes behind the final bridge. Monster. VR bots, civilians. Rescue all VR bot civilians and monster escape. Yeah. And then you kind of have this CAD-based game. Then you have the Ghost House. It's kind of, I guess, kind of more playing off of the Ghostbusters type scenario where you're having to capture ghosts. Let's see. The whole sheriff thing, the wanted stuff. Which, defeat more than 35 baddies in endless mode and wanted. Well, the thing was, this one did require you to actually have 2 players, and of course, it was kind of hard to really make out because I think one player had to, the person not using the VR had to describe the person to the person with the VR. They had to describe the target to the person with the VR because I guess they couldn't see him. So kind of the same thing with also the ghost busting thing. Like the outside players could see the ghost, but the person with the VR couldn't see him. So it was a weird co-op based thing, which took some time to do by yourself. It was possible, but wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, then they had the rescue bot stuff, where for this one you're basically controlling one of the bots and having to rescue all his buddies, trying to get to the end of the level. And actually, I mean, this kind of became the precursor to a standalone game called the Astrobots VR mission. Yeah, so apparently this game mode itself kind of was inspired, that. And of course you had the Tour Wars DLC, which added another mode to it, which kind of gave you... It kind of more or less gave you the... kind of the whole Toy Story-esque feel to it, where you had to have like a Gatling gun, having to shoot toy-to-base enemies. So it was kind of a little bit fun and gimmicky. Alright. I think... for Hatsune Miku Project Diva Future Tone. Well, weirdly, they considered the game to be free, which, yeah, the base game was free, but you couldn't really do anything. You had to buy the expansions. So, Future Sound, Colorful Tone. But I would still say this is probably the best Hatsune Miku game by far. Considering there's... At the time of this recording, anyway, there are 240 songs to go through, and they have a pretty good selection. Granted, I kind of wish they had some songs from maybe Project Diva X. That would have been nice, because there were some that were pretty good. But, I mean, for the most part, I mean, having 240 songs to go through wasn't that bad. A lot of it was playing a rhythm game on Extreme, or Extra Extreme, getting VP points, play the rhythm game for 39 minutes and 39 seconds, so standard stuff. And then Future Sound had its own set where you had to reach a certain rank. Yeah, you had separate ranks for Future Sound and Colorful Tone, so you having to go through that, and then of course going through music videos, taking photos for 39 different songs, so that took some time. And same thing for the Colorful Tone, you got it doing mostly the same thing. But yeah, a little bit, I would say it's a little bit on the grind, a little bit grindy, but not, I wouldn't say as bad as Project Diva X, which that one, from what I've heard, even platinuming that one took about 100 hours and endless amounts of grinding, and you only had about 30 songs, so I kind of had the feeling it was going to be very repetitive for an amount of time. But I think that is going to be that for right now. I'll pick up the rest of these trophies some other time. I just want the video running too long, but you know, I mean, so far a good set of trophies that I've gotten so far. But anyway, a lot of memorable stuff, and I kind of had a feeling I should probably go back just to play for the sake of, you know, for fun, because I haven't played some of these games in such a long time. But well, I'll have to find time for that. Alright guys, this is DevilHunterXYZ, and until next time.